Tell me, champions, why are you here? The champions raised their banners, praising the light of the morning Lord as one of his champions stood before them. They answered in sacred hymns, to fight, for victory, to be greater than the most vile darkness. So, what is a hero? A hero is a symbol, hope where it is needed in times of vile darkness. We, those of the exalted deeds, are the light. The misty past holds many secrets. Great wizards and powerful clerics, not to mention the deities themselves, have used spells and created items that are beyond the ken of present-day knowledge. These items survive as artifacts, but their means of creation are long gone. Only those who are pure in word, thought and deed may look upon the knowledge gathered within this blessed tome. For the blinding truths inscribed within offer nothing but redemption or destruction for the wicked. May these consecrated pages forever illuminate the paths of the righteous. Chapter 1. Lathander's Sermon on the Book of Exalted Deeds. A dawn sermon of Lathander, delivered on the 81st morning since the deliverance was first whispered. Ah, you feel it, don't you? The hush before the first note of birdsong, the breath held by the world before the sun crests the horizon, that trembling hope in your chest. That is not just the dawn, it is the truth of goodness drawing near. Now listen, dear hearts, and open yourselves to all possibility, for I speak of a book, a beacon, a chorus, a truth etched in gold, stitched in mercy, and sung in the tongue of the righteous, of all who walk the sacred path. I speak of the book of exalted deeds. Yes, it is real. Yes, it wanders as it calls to those whose hands are scarred from lifting others, whose backs are straight with purpose, created by those through an alliance of luminous hearts who dared, in all corners of the multiverse, to define what it means to do good. And that, my dear ones, was no small task. If you are to be worthy of the words, of the gifts, listen and raise your heads to the dawnlight. For I speak to you of the tenets. The clasp that binds the book is shaped as wings for good reason. For to open it, one must first fly, soar in spirit, in sacrifice, in love. You must be good, in purpose, in intent. But what does it mean to be truly good? For we will delve into the nature of that very question within this book. However, I, Lathander, he who wakes before all, will add my grace upon this thought. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you have expanded your mind, put those words into action, for no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted, and through the words of the Platinum Dragon. Show me your devotion through your deeds, not your prayers. And when the book is opened, what then, patient wanderer? I would speak true, for the book reveals. Slowly, deeply, through 80 hours of light poured into you like sunrise seeping through a small crack upon a darkened chamber. It sharpens your wisdom. Yes, but more than that, it tunes your soul. It stirs your magic with the rhythm of righteousness. It sets a halo upon your brow, of being seen by the wicked and the weary alike. How could you be faster, stronger, more resilient? The book will guide the path before you. Mortals speak true of fear, but turn your gaze to the sun, for your largest fear carries your greatest growth. And as the book lays the path before you, fiends shrink before that glow. Undeath recoils from radiant light, not because they fear you, but because they fear what you stand for. But beware, my children, you must carry the burden of its wisdom as you would a living flame. Should you falter, should your kindness fade, or worse, should you strike out in cruelty, then the blessings it gave will vanish. For it knows, as I know, that one's light without action is only an illusion. There are whispers, of course, there always are, that the river Styx can strip the book of its power. That evil may silence it for 100 years. And perhaps it is so. But know this, as long as good exists, the book of exalted deeds shall endure. You are proof of that. Every time you show mercy, every time you lift a voice in song or a hand in aid, every time you speak truth, though it trembles on your lips, you are writing a new page in the book. And I see it. I see you. So strive, Dawnbringers. Not because you must, but because you can. The book is out there, somewhere, seeking the next hand to hold it. Will it be yours? Then let this be your 81st dawn. Let it begin with an act. One act of kindness. One spark of exalted purpose. One step toward the light. And the multiverse will shine a little brighter. Avoid the cold, bitter comfort of cynicism. Let others say the world is broken, and you can say it is being reborn in the light of the new day. Each day, watch the sunrise. Truly, watch it. See how it burns the night without hate, how it brings warmth to even the stone. Let that be your way. Let your greatest offering be the act of helping others. Let your greatest temple be in the open sky. And if you must fight, and you must, for darkness does not yield politely, then fight for renewal and for hope. Purge the rot, uproot the undead who mock the sacred cycle. Send them to rest and bless the soil where they lay. You are my hands. You are my voice. You are my light. And with that, the Morning Lord smiled, a soft thing, sun-warmed and certain, and rose into the beams of the sun until the last glimmer of his halo faded into gold. Chapter 2. What is good? Many beings are happy to rattle off long lists of sins they haven't committed as evidence that they are good. The utter avoidance of evil, however, doesn't make them good. Solidly neutral, perhaps, but not good. Being good requires a certain quality of temperament. The presence of virtues that spur a being, not just to avoid evil in appearance, but to actively promote good. As expressed in the book of exalted deeds, good implies altruism, respect for life, and a concern for the dignity of sentient beings. Those who are good make personal sacrifices to help others. Good is not nice, polite, well-mannered, prudish, self-righteous, or naive, though good-aligned beings might be some of those things. Good is the awesome holy energy that radiates from the celestial planes and crushes evil. Good is selfless, just, hopeful, benevolent, and righteous. These acts of goodness are concrete, positive means by which the heroes of the world fight against the darkness of evil. They are the meat and drink of the exalted hero, and should serve as an inspiration of good alignment, suggesting not only common actions, but also motivations and personality traits. When a village elder comes to a good being and says, "Please help us, a dragon is threatening our village," those who are good respond as, "What can you pay?" Those who are more neutral might be that mercenary, and those who are evil would certainly consider how to collect the most benefit from the situation. For a good being, however, helping others is a higher priority than personal gain. Those who follow the righteous path might ask a number of other questions before leaping up from her seat and charging to the village's aid. This doesn't mean they are necessarily stupid. They can be cautious, determining how powerful the dragon is and whether additional reinforcements are required. But they never say, "Sorry, I'm out of my league. Go find another hero." It's just good sense to learn as much as possible about a foe before plunging into battle. Even more, those on the path need not be naively trusting. Some might go to great lengths to verify that the elder's story is true, and not some villain's attempt to lure them into a trap. All their caution or suspicion still doesn't undermine their responsibility to offer help to those in need. Altruism is the first word in the definition of good, and helping others without reward or even thanks is part of a good being's daily work. One specific aspect of helping others is charity, providing material assistance to those in need, particularly those whose situation in life robs them of pride and respect. Offering food to the hungry, clothes to the naked, lodging to the homeless, care for orphans and widows, and hope to the hopeless are among the simplest and yet most profound of good deeds. They offer this sort of assistance to needy people without regard for their moral character and with the utmost concern for their dignity. The idea that creatures too weak to better themselves deserve their low position is a hallmark of evil dogma. Those as myself reject this notion completely, recognizing that most poor and needy people are the victims of circumstance, not of their own weakness or failings. If we look into the words of Illustrate, we can see some insight into the charity of her grace. A rightful place awaits you in the realms above, in the land of the great light. Come in peace and live beneath the sun again, where trees and flowers grow. In war, resolution. In defeat, defiance. In victory, magnanimity. In peace, goodwill. One moment she was a carefree child dancing like a moonbeam or running like a silver wolf through the forest. The next moment, she was either as seductive as a siren or as serious as a dwarven god. Split and complex is often the way of good, not a simple path that is guaranteed, but a life of learning, even with the book of exalted deeds. Healing wounds, removing disease, and neutralizing poison are concrete embodiments of a good creature's respect for life. These deeds are not inherently good, since they can be performed selfishly or in the interests of evil. Even so, healing magic involves positive energy, which is closely linked to holy power. Those who are good devote their lives to healing as an expression of their morality. Pelor is a god of healing within Earth, and his clerics with the healing domain make it their mission to share Pelor's beneficence with others through healing. Even paladins, whose mission is primarily to smite evildoers, have the innate ability to heal wounds and remove disease as a reflection of their pure goodness. Those devoted to healing view the power to heal as a gift of celestial powers, and are generally careful never to use that gift in a way that would cheapen or taint it, by healing evil beings, for example. On the other hand, some view healing as a means of grace, believing that every cure-like wounds cast on a blackguard cannot help but lead the villain closer to repentance and redemption. Those on the path of goodness don't just help others or fight evil when it's convenient for him to do so. Even the most generous altruism, when it comes without sacrifice, or even serves one's own self-interest, is neutral at best. A being committed to the cause of good champions that cause in any circumstance, often at great personal risk or cost. Forfeiting any claim on a reward for one's deeds is a simple form of sacrifice touched. Voluntarily donating money, goods, or even magic items to a temple, charitable institution, an orphanage or aid society, or other organization is another financial sacrifice, often practiced by those who read the book of exalted deeds. Those who are exceptionally virtuous might swear sacred vows, forever sacrificing the enjoyment of some worldly pleasure, alcohol or stimulants, sex or material possessions, or course of action, including violence. True heroes of righteousness all too often sacrifice their own lives to save the lives of others. The deities of good are the highest exemplars of the principles of virtue, righteousness, and purity. By offering them worship, sacrifice, and service, good beings cultivate their own personal virtues, assist the cause of good in concrete ways, supporting the charitable work of the Church, and strengthening the clerics and paladins who serve as the deity's agents, and extend the deity's reach in the world. Unlike evil deities, good deities usually have temples and shrines in open public places, often at or near the center of bustling cities. In fact, the worship of good deities is one of the forces that often helps to cement humanoid communities together, serving to unite the populace in a common activity and a common set of ideals. This is particularly common among non-human races of good alignment, including halflings, dwarves, and elves, where good alignment is the norm, and a single deity often claims the allegiance of an entire community. However, it is common for even human cities to be drawn together in the worship of Pelor or Lathander, to note a few, who command at least the respect of neutral citizens as well as good. Of course, in evil cultures, the worship of good deities can be both a crime and an act of rebellion. Good spells alleviate suffering, inspire hope or joy, use the caster's energy or vitality to help or heal another, summon celestials, or channel holy power. Particularly in the last instance, good spells might be just as destructive, at least to evil creatures, as a fireball. Not all good spells involve only sweetness and light. Countless spells are noted within the Book of Exalted Deeds, and if one is of moral heart, their mind is expanded with both a connection to expanded divine casting and those that are strung in the weave, such as the divination school. Good spells don't have any redemptive influence on those who cast them, for better or worse. An evil wizard who dabbles in a few good spells, most likely to help him achieve selfish ends, does not usually decide to abandon his evil ways because he's been purified by the touch of the holy. On the other hand, there are certain spells whose sanctified nature demands a concrete, physical sacrifice from the caster. No being in the multiverse can draw upon such holy magic without his soul truly being changed for the better as a result, even if it is just a small touch. For those who devote their lives to hunting and exterminating the forces of evil, this most seductive lure may be the abandonment of mercy. Mercy means giving quarter to enemies who surrender and treating criminals and prisoners with compassion and even kindness. It is, in effect, the good doctrine of respect for life taken to its logical extreme, respecting and honoring even the life of one's enemy. In a world full of enemies who show no respect for life whatsoever, it can be extremely tempting to treat foes as they have treated others, to exact revenge for slain comrades and innocents, to offer no quarter and become merciless. Those on the path must not succumb to that trap. If they follow the sermons of the Book of Exalted Deeds, they must offer mercy and accept surrender, no matter how many times villains might betray that kindness or escape from captivity to continue their evil deeds. If a foe surrenders, they are bound to accept the surrender, bind the prisoner, and treat him as kindly as possible. Within the words of Ilmater, we see within the Book of Exalted Deeds some insight in that manifestation of good. Lord, Ilmater, I beseech you look upon me and behold my sin. Let it stand before your infinite patience and balk in its presence. For while I am weak, you stand mighty. Let me be absolved before your weeping majesty, that I may cleanly bear the burden of others in your name. My knees may stagger, my bones may break, my will may fracture, but my faith stands strong on your shoulders, Lord, if you will let it. Closely tied to mercy, forgiveness is still a separate act. Mercy means respecting the life of an enemy, treating him like a being worthy of kindness. Forgiveness is an act of faith, a willingness to believe that even the vilest evildoer or darkness is capable of change. Those with good in their hearts are not enjoined to forgive and forget every time someone harms them. At the simplest level, forgiveness means abdicating one's right to vengeance. On a deeper level, it means an evil being makes an effort to repent, turn away from evil, and lead a better life. If you follow the teachings of the Book of Exalted Deeds, you are called upon to encourage the reformed villain. Let the past be past, and not to hold their deeds against her. We again see a useful passage within the words of Torm. Guide my hand, Torm. Let it be mercy where mercy may yet be earned, and ruin where it must be so. Forgiveness is essential to redemption. If those he or she has harmed refuse to forgive them, then those seeking to turn away from evil face nothing but hatred and resentment from those who should be their new allies. Isolated from both their former allies and their former enemies, they nurse resentment and quickly slide back into their evil ways. By extending forgiveness to those who ask it, those on the path actively spread good, both by encouraging those who are trying to turn away from evil and by demonstrating to evildoers that the path of redemption is possible. If the most soullessly evil villains revel in spreading despair and devouring every last shred of hope, it naturally follows that the cause of good involves rekindling hope in the face of despair. This might be the most nebulous of all good deeds, hard to define or measure, but it also might be the heart and essence of good. A man whose body is wasting away from disease actually has two illnesses: the physical disease that consumes his flesh and the despair that gnaws at his soul. Healing him not only heals his body, it also restores his lost hope. A woman who throws herself on a paladin's mercy and turns from her evil ways struggles along the difficult road to redemption. The paladin's mercy and forgiveness offer the most important assistance along that road: hope, a vision of the reward that lies ahead. Hope, in its truest form, is more than just a vague wish for things to be better than they are. It is a state of things as they might be. When an exalted bard comes to a city that groans under the oppressive rule of a pit fiend, he may inspire hope by singing tales of liberation or by demonstrating force of arms against the pit fiend's diabolic minions. But the best hope available to the oppressed residents of the city is when the bard simply shows them kindness, thereby reminding them of what it was like to live under a more benign rule. He brings them together in community, whereas the devils have been turning them against each other, sowing distrust alongside despair. By experiencing a state of kindness and freedom, however small, the citizens are inspired with hope. That hope empowers them to resist the devils, with or without the bard's force of arms. Chapter 3. To fight evil. Perhaps the greatest act of good one could ever hope to accomplish is the redemption of an evil soul. Bringing an evil being to see the error of their ways not only stops her from preying on innocent victims, but helps them as well, winning them a place in the blessed afterlife of the upper planes, instead of an eternity of torment and damnation in the lower. While acts of charity and healing might help a person's body, redeeming their soul, holding a sword to a captured villain's throat and shouting, "Worship Bahamut or die," is not a means of redemption. Sword point conversion might be a useful political tool, but almost entirely without impact on the souls of the converts. Worse, it stinks of evil, robbing the victim of the freedom to choose and echoing the use of torture to extract the desired behavior. True redemption is a much more difficult and involved process, but those who are truly virtuous consider the reward worth the effort involved. Of course, those who follow the book recognize that some creatures are utterly beyond redemption. Some creatures are either completely irredeemable or so intimately tied to evil that they are almost entirely hopeless. Certainly demons and devils are best slain, or at least banished, and only a naive fool would try to convert them. Evil dragons might not be entirely beyond salvation, but there is truly only the barest glimmer of hope. On the other hand, a good being approaches every encounter with orcs, goblinoids, and even the thoroughly evil drow with heart and mind open to the possibility, however remote, that his opponents might someday be transformed allies. Creatures that are usually evil can be redeemed. This is not to say that if you follow the book's teachings, your first thought in an ambush should be, "How can I redeem these poor orcs?" However, If the ambushing orcs end up surrendering, there is ample opportunity to seek their redemption. If we look into the words of Tyr's champion, we can see the disdain for evil's ways. I am the planetar Antonia of Yerdes, known to mortals as resounding justice, and I bring good tidings to you, Lathander, fourth of that name. Grimjaws is nigh. In the name of Tyr, this land shall be cleansed of wickedness and anarchy. The seed of Valagan thirdborn shall be extinguished. Those with evil in your hearts, beware. Tyr's justice is both merciful and swift. The choice to follow the path of exalted deeds means picking one's way among complicated moral issues and painful dilemmas. It means questioning some of the common assumptions about what's acceptable in the context of the world. When is it good and justified to use evil means to achieve them? Is it morally acceptable, for example, to torture an evil captive in order to extract vital information that can prevent the deaths of thousands of innocents? The question often shudders those who are good with the thought of committing torture, but the goal of preventing thousands of deaths is undeniably a virtuous one. Those of a more grey outlook might easily consider the use of torture in such a circumstance. With evil acts on a smaller scale, even the most virtuous beings can find themselves tempted to agree that a very good end justifies a mildly evil means. Is it acceptable to tell a small lie in order to prevent a minor catastrophe? A large catastrophe? A world-shattering catastrophe? The fundamental answer is no, at least written within the Book of Exalted Deeds. An evil act is an evil act, no matter what good result it may achieve. A paladin who knowingly commits an evil act in pursuit of any end, no matter how good, still jeopardizes her paladinhood. Some might view a situation where an evil act is required to avert a catastrophic evil as a form of martyrdom. I can save 1,000 innocent lives by sacrificing my purity. For some, that is a sacrifice worth making, just as they would not hesitate to sacrifice their lives for the same cause. After all, it would simply be selfish to let innocents die so a paladin can hang on to their exalted feats. Unfortunately, this view is ultimately misguided. This line of thinking treats the purity of the good being soul as a commodity that they can just give up or sacrifice like any other possession. In fact, when an otherwise good being decides to commit an evil act, the effects are larger than the individual. What they see as a personal sacrifice is actually a shift in the universal balance of power between good and evil, in evil's favor. The consequences of that single evil act, no matter how small, extend far beyond the single act and involve a loss to more than just them doing the deed. Thus, it is not a personal sacrifice, but a concession to evil, and thus unconscionable. Violence is a part of the world, and not inherently evil in the context of that world. The deities of good equip their heroes not just to be meek and humble servants, but to be their fists and swords, their champions in a brutal war against the forces of evil. A paladin smiting a blackguard or a blue dragon is not committing an evil act. The cause of good expects and often demands that violence be brought to bear against enemies. That said, there are certain limits upon the use of violence that those who follow good must observe. First, violence in the name of good must have just cause, which in the context of the Book of Exalted Deeds means primarily that it must be directed against evil. It is certainly possible for a good nation to declare war upon another good nation, but fighting in such a conflict is not a good act. In fact, even launching a war upon a nearby tribe of evil creatures is not necessarily good if the attack comes without provocation. The mere existence of evil creatures is not a just cause for war against them if the creatures have been causing no harm. A full-scale war would provoke them to evil deeds and bring unnecessary suffering to both sides of the conflict. Similarly, revenge is not an acceptable cause for violence, although violence is an appropriate means of stopping further acts of evil, as opposed to paying back evil already committed. The second consideration is that violence should have good intentions. Launching an incursion into Orc territory is not a good act if the primary motivation is profit, whether that means clearing the treasure out of the ruins the Orcs inhabit or claim. The Misty Past holds many secrets. Great wizards and powerful clerics, not to mention the deities themselves, have used spells and created items that are beyond the ken of present-day knowledge. These items survive as artifacts, but their means of creation are long gone. Only those who are pure in word, thought, and deed may look upon the knowledge gathered within this blessed tome. For the blinding truths inscribed within offer nothing but redemption or destruction for the wicked. May these consecrated pages forever illuminate the paths of the righteous. Ah, you feel it, don't you? The hush before the first note of birdsong, the breath held by the world before the sun crests the horizon, that trembling hope in your chest. That is not just the dawn, it is the truth of goodness drawing near.